What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Taurean Reloaded channel. If you are new, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, and have your notifications set to all so you can be notified whenever I upload a new video or go live. Also, be sure to like, comment, and share this content on your various social media platforms. Before I get into this, I have to give a shout out to Professor Black Truth because he did an excellent moment of truth a few days ago, probably well over a week ago, when he was talking about James Patterson and the alleged racism older white writers face when it comes to work. And this is another, in my opinion, another one of those claims that they're trying to have when it comes to the so-called great replacement theory that apparently PC people, especially PC males, are going through because they feel like they're not being seen or they're not getting the attention they once were, and they feel that everyone else is getting a leg up. And it's something that Professor Black Truth said in there. He was basically saying how, and I'm going to paraphrase it, Dub S is kicking its own ass. Literally, like their power has been around for so long and they have literally left their mark on every corner of the earth. And now it's starting to backfire on them in ways that they didn't think that it would, but it is. So James Patterson is pretty much a world-renowned author. He's written many books, but I think that that one about the Alex Cross, that of course you know Samuel L. Jackson, no, Morgan Freeman was known for playing in that movie Along Came a Spider, and then of course later on Tyler Perry played him in the movie Alex Cross that came out a few years ago, but it really didn't do well. No one really could see Tyler Perry doing a role like that. But it is what it is, and I think that's like one of his most famous works that he's known for. Came out and made a comment saying that white writers face racism, and they're probably sitting there saying to themselves, how is that even possible? And remember, I told y'all PC loves to play the game of trying to be oppressed when they're really not oppressed, and when you ask them what they're oppressed about, it's crickets. It's like you're making a mockery of racism. They're trying to find a way to cement a claim for themselves where they can feel oppressed, but every time they make that claim, it always falls flat. It's hard to claim oppression when you are the conveyor and creator of it, and not just against black people, even though we know we are your primary target, but everyone else, in some aspects, even against yourselves. So I'm going to go ahead and read this article coming from the BBC because now James Patterson has come out and given an apology for saying that blaspheming statement. Author James Patterson has apologized for saying older white writers face just another form of racism, which makes it harder for them to find work. The best-selling U.S. writer made his comments to Sunday Times last week, but following a backlash, he posted an apology and said he did not actually think white writers suffered racism. Yes, you did. He did. He meant every word that he said. It's just that when the backlash came, he had to backtrack. See, this is another reason why I feel a lot of people, especially older people, or older PC people, or PC people in general, don't like the internet, because at one time before the social media became a thing, they were able to say a lot of things and seemingly get away with it because there wasn't any backlash, and if there was, they didn't see it. But because now everyone can see everything and everything is out there for public consumption, when that backlash comes, it hits hard. But following a backlash, he posted an apology and said he did not actually think white writers suffer racism. I apologize for saying white males having trouble finding work is a form of racism, the 75-year-old wrote on Facebook on Tuesday. Now, really, think about that. He said he apologized for saying white male writers have trouble finding work is a form of racism. Having trouble finding work as an older white male, to him, is a form of racism. That is a slap in the face to actual racism. And I think that's why the backlash hit the way that it did, because people were saying that's not racism. Maybe it's because no one wants to work with you, or maybe your work is not as good as it once was. But to claim that it's a form of racism, that's a scapegoat. Especially when I just did a video talking about how Wells Fargo was holding false and fake interviews pretending that they were going to hire black people, and they really weren't going to hire them at all. Now that's a form of systemic racism, not someone not wanting to work with you. Because unless they came out and said, we don't want to work with you because you're an older white male, then you really have no claim. You're just throwing out something onto the walls and hoping something sticks. Kind of reminds me of how they wanted to try to do those bring up quote unquote hate crime charges against those 3 men in Akron for beating Ethan Lemming to death. They wanted to try to say it was a hate crime, but they was like, is there any proof that there is? Or like what it was with Peyton Gendron. You know, I talked about that in my live stream, one of my recent live streams, how they just now charged him with a hate crime, even though in his manifesto, he pretty much put out there how much he hated black people. He even had it written on his gun. So for James Patterson to sit up there and say that, that's making a mockery of actual racism. And that's where the backlash came from. I absolutely do not believe that racism is practiced against white writers, because it isn't. Please know that I strongly support a diversity of voices being heard in literature, in Hollywood, and everywhere. Patterson is one of the world's most successful authors, having sold roughly 450 million books, thriller nonfiction, and romance novels over several decades. He was the best-selling author of adult fiction in the UK in 2020, according to Nielsen's book research, and was recently announced as the most borrowed author from British libraries for the 14th year in a row. His best-known works include the Women's Murder Club novel series and another series about Alex Cross, a black detective and psychologist portrayed by actors Morgan Freeman and Tyler Perry in film adaptations. According to the Sunday Times, Patterson said he worries that it is hard for white men to find writing jobs in film, TV, theater, and publishing. What's that all about? Patterson said. Can you get a job? Yes. Is it harder? Yes. It's even harder for older writers. You don't meet many 52-year-old white males. Well, James Patterson, imagine how hard it is for black writers, male or female, to get work. Can you imagine how many books have been written by black authors over the years that don't make it to a bookshelf? Or they get shelved, but not for public consumption, and they just pass them over and they go and they look for, say, a white male writer such as yourself? Think about this, James Patterson. When your books were being sold, did you care at all that maybe some black writers' books got passed up so they could push yours out there? And I'm talking about before you were even well known. I'm talking about in your infancy stages. And they could have had a better written book, but maybe they got passed over because, I don't know, actual racism. They were like, oh, we don't know how that would sell coming from a black writer or a black author. Just like it was this old trope that black films don't do well in the box office. Y'all remember that trope? And then Black Panther in 2018 came out and completely shattered all of that. But to be honest, before Black Panther came out, it was black films that were doing well. But see, they had to make them a certain way that they could only cater to an urban market. But Black Panther was that film that kind of had that crossover success. So now it's like the door is wide open at this point. But like I said, it was movies before then that would sell. Hell, if you look, like, I bet you if you looked at audience, even over the years when it came to the quote unquote hood flick, there was other races of people in them audiences. Not as many as black people, of course, depending on what movie theater you went to as well. But there was other groups in there as well. But they tried to make it seem like black movies did not do well. You know, they had a black director, mainly black actors. That's why they always had to shoehorn another group in there, mainly people that look like James Patterson, to hope that the movie would sell just on the basis of that one PC person being in there. Think about it like this. When Don Cheadle did that Miles Davis movie, they shoehorned a PC character in there that did not exist in Miles Davis's life, because they said that they didn't put them in there, they would not release the film. Y'all can go back and look at that, and y'all probably have heard that story. So he had to bite the bullet and put a fake fictional PC character in the movie that did not exist in Miles Davis's life as his friend, just so the movie could get released. So James Patterson, if you want to talk about racism, that's another example right there. But let me continue. Many people online took umbrage at the comments. Author Keith Boykin, who wrote Race Against Time, The Politics of a Darkening America, noted on Twitter that as recently as 2020, the heads of all Big Five publishing houses were white, and all 3/4 of published authors are white. But James Patterson thinks they are oppressed, he wrote. Frederick Joseph, author of the Black Friend on being a better white person, offered from a black man who has had over 50 rejections of books, all of which are now bestsellers because white editors don't understand them or already have a black male authors. Shut up. Dr. Shola Mas Shag Bamimimu, I'm probably mispronouncing his person name, forgive me, author of This Is Why I Resist, described Patterson's false equivalence of racism as white supremacy personified. She said he's missing a good old days when white men had all the writing gigs. Rebecca Carroll, whose memoir was titled Surviving the White Gaze, added, imagine being born the year Jackie Robinson was the first black MLB player in history, and then growing up to be one of the richest authors in America talking about struggles for white men in another form of racism. Artist and cartoonist Xing Yin Kaur said Patterson and other celebrities had written their ways of privilege far beyond their own skill levels. Hell of a book author Jason Mott was left almost speechless. And basically what he did was he posted up a meme of the John Wall meme of him leaning back in his chair saying bruh. And he said, my complete, unedited, and unabridged thoughts on the James Patterson situation. And every last person who says something like, who wrote in response to that I read, is absolutely 100% correct. The only reason he's feeling this so-called backlash is because he feels he's not getting the work he feels he should get as a PC male. See, he didn't want to say that. He feels that as a PC, it's that entitlement. The entitlement is what it is. You cannot have Dub S without a certain level of entitlement attached to it that will push them over the edge or feel like they should have that advantage. But like I said, when I was using the examples, even when it came to movies and black directors, the same applies to black authors. As a matter of fact, the same could apply to every facet of society in the rejection realm where black people dwell, or a good chunk of them do. And you got a lot of idiots out here that says that racism doesn't exist or it isn't a thing. That's why I had to go in on Brandon Fakem on my on the Bed Bucking video that I did when he said white guilt is so annoying, because that goes into the whole thing of another talking point that PC loves to do, of saying, oh, it's because I'm white, isn't it? What? No, that is definitely not it. You've had all the advantages up until this point, and still in an aspect, in hindsight, still do, and will continue to do so. Who knows? You might actually hold on to it until the end of time. I'm not sure. We can't see the future. But yeah, he meant exactly what he said. He meant exactly every word that came out of his mouth or left his mind and went on to whatever social media platform he posted this on, which I believe was Twitter. I'm not sure. But either way, it was a false equivalence. James Patterson, this was not racism that you quote unquote faced. It wasn't discrimination. It wasn't oppression. You're already a successful author. That's the thing. He's already successful. 450 million books worldwide is nothing to scoff at. That's very, very successful. Some black authors wish they could even sell 100 million. You sold 450 million. And that's not enough. That's the thing about Dub S2. When you think, or when they think they have gotten enough, it's never enough. For him, 450 million books worldwide is not enough for him. Nothing. Or not say nothing. It's not enough. It's never enough. Because when you think of Dub S and its global domination, the key word there is domination. And in that aspect, that's how James Patterson felt. And he's not the only one that feels that way. It's probably a lot of other PC authors out there that feel the exact same way as he does. And they will sound just as dumb as he did if they come out and peddle the same exact talking point.